Hello and welcome to the OverShadow ShadowCast with your host Thomas Anderson. Abigail's not here this week, she'll be returning next week. So as per when it's just me, we'll just slide straight into it. I've not been playing much actually this week, but when I have had a chance I've played a little bit more Dragon Commander. And what I've found so far has been that the game, I thought I was stuck but I wasn't, I just needed to learn a couple of the systems. The game's the AI starts off in the first few turns really simplistic and a bit stupid, and then suddenly gets a bit, maybe not smarter, but definitely more aggressive and complicated. So that took me by surprise, but I got the hang of it. And there is a part where you move from the sort of first opening area into the next area, and then the game sort of grows and changes and extra characters get added, even though it is supposed to be a sort of like turn-based RTS mixed strategy, like a Total War game, but characters still get added. But when I dropped into that second area, I thought that the world was already owned by the enemies in it, so I just played it nice and safe. But that was just because I misread the colours, which made me feel really stupid, and it turns out that no, it wasn't. So I'm now playing catch up, trying to seize bits of territory before they have everything, and that's proving quite difficult. I also found out that the retreat option just basically seems to kill all of your units anyway, so what's the point? And it's a weird thing as well, the transports which move across water, they appear to, if you order them across water onto land, they appear on the map to be on land, but for some reason when the enemy has a turn after you, they can intercept them as they move through the water. So it looks like you're safe, so you end the turn and then your entire army gets wiped out because it gets killed on the transport. It's a bit stupid. But what I am really loving is the background stuff outside. There's like a sort of political element and a character development element which is very interesting, like morality as well. That element to me is really the primary reason for me to continue playing, because I'm not entirely sure if it's balanced the right way or complicated enough to make the other stuff as interesting. It's sort of like a game of drafts, as it were, with one of those chess timers. You move quickly, but it's very simplistic moves. Anyway, I'm going to keep playing that, and I'll let you know if anything changes. So I'll move on to the stories that we're going to talk about. There's only a few today. So the first one is Google Stadia. Google's had to provide refunds for players that bought Farming Simulator 19 and Tomb Raider Definitive Edition for the Stadia, although I'm not sure why you would do that at this stage, after it was announced that those games would be added to the Pro subscription shortly after they were released on the Stadia. Essentially, they put them on sale to sell them, and then released them for free. So Stadia said, yeah, we got that wrong, and is offering out refunds for people. I think that was because the Stadia also came with 3 months free Pro, I think, Pro subscription, so everybody was going to get those games for at least 3 months anyway, so it wasn't a good idea to do it the way they did it. They've also admitted that the frame rate and quality of the Stadia is not the 4K 60 FPS frames per second that was discussed when the Stadia was announced. Currently I think what they're having is 1080 or 1440p, and then it's up-resed afterwards, so it's not natively 4K. Google says that the ability is there in the equipment that they've provided, but they need the developers to use it, so they've thrown the developers under the bus. They also say that things are improving. Well, that's irrelevant, they're going to say that anyway. So the Google Stadia wasn't ready when it was released. We know that, we discussed that previously. But they released it early to try and get its problems ironed out, to run it at a bit of a loss before the other similar streaming services are made available. Essentially, I think they assume that the direction of gaming is towards streaming, so they've jumped in early, and that means when the others all move to streaming, they're already the biggest fish, because they've had months or years to perfect what they're doing, and the others are trying to catch up. Personally, I'm not going anywhere near the Stadia. I don't really see the point in it, so I'm not going anywhere near it. Especially not at this early stage, where it clearly doesn't work properly. Next story is Bethesda. So this relates to the Elder Scrolls Blades, which I have recently been playing on my phone, because I've got a phone that's able to do it now. So everything I mention here is in an update, a 1.5 update releasing in early December. So first of all, they've removed chest timers completely. They've also increased the loot drops from enemies and added bosses to the end of all quests that will drop lots of loot too. I think the key questions here for this update is this what we wanted / the game needed, and why have Bethesda done this? I think the next point sort of sums up, the next point sort of introduces a bit more of an answer, because they've also added the guilds and the PvP. So guilds is a way of players joining together to operate together, like a clan or a guild in a different game. And PvP, player versus player, is called the arena mode. So the PvP will be cross-platform between mobile and Nintendo Switch, and the Switch release has been pushed back to 2020. So they're trying, that's a good thing, because they're trying to expand the player base, but I think that's really what the point is. That's why they've made these changes. They released it to try and make as much money as possible from the initial interest by putting all these microtransaction things. And then once the player count got to a certain point, they then released all these good changes to try and get players back and to keep the old players. And to keep the players who have already been playing, they're giving them guilds and PvP to make it new and exciting and interesting. So basically they've made these changes to try and make as much money as possible to keep their players and get new ones. It's not about actually releasing a game people want to play. Which is a shame, because if they bothered to do that, like Fallout Shelter was really, really well received, and they released that as a game, not as a microtransactions bank card. And it's a shame, because if they had done that with this game, it would have done really, really well. I've played the game. It's got a couple of problems, but it's actually quite interesting, really well made. Actually, you know, a lot of time and effort and money put into a game like that. It's quite unique, and considering that most mobile games are not unique, that's definitely a good thing. Last story is CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk 2077. So we've had confirmed single player paid story DLC, like The Witcher 3. And we'll be getting those long before multiplayer mode is implemented. They've confirmed that there will be some sort of multiplayer mode. After the multiplayer has been released, they've said that they'll be experimenting with, you know, how it will work. Things like microtransactions and stuff like that, but it's too early in the development of their first multiplayer game, which is what it is, to say anything for sure. What they have said is that their core policy will stay the same. They will make sure that the price is fair and any DLC or microtransactions are good value for money. Essentially not a £5 hat or a £30 hammer. There's little to go on when it comes to the multiplayer, because we don't really know a lot about the game's multiplayer mode, and it sounds like they don't actually necessarily know a lot either. What we do know is that they're taking it immensely seriously, because they're taking so long to develop it, and there will be a huge amount of time between the single player release and the multiplayer release. We do know the single player will have no microtransactions and there will be paid DLC, like I said, and that it's made by two separate teams. The multiplayer release is made by a separate team to the single player. Also, whenever they mention the multiplayer mode, they do use the word release a lot, and that makes me think that it may be in some way a separate game. Possibly similar to Grand Theft Auto, possibly a bit more like Gwent as an independent application, but using a lot of the same assets. So free to play with microtransactions and DLC depending on how they work it. So there's a lot of worry here and fair concern, because they've actually, they're using microtransactions and all the rest of it. But what we have to look at is whether or not they stick to the single player, because the real problem with releasing these multiplayer games and microtransactions is it has a knock-on effect that people don't properly do their single player. The single player DLC for Grand Theft Auto 5 disappeared when Rockstar saw how well Grand Theft Auto Online did. Red Dead Redemption 2 won't have any single player DLC because of how well Grand Theft Auto Online did, so they're trying to do the same for Red Dead Online. They've also said as a company, Take-Two I think it was, that they're going to move towards live service and away from single player. They're going to reduce their single player focus. They've also released less games since that succeeded so well. And I think that's what people are worried about. The existence of a multiplayer mode or game or even microtransactions in that isn't the issue. It's the fact that it's all we're going to get at the minute. So when the last company who's not doing it joins in doing it, we worry that they're going to stop doing their single player as well. I think as long as they do that and do it as well as they did with The Witcher 3, we won't have a problem. But they have to do it that way, otherwise we will. I think that's where the concern comes from. And I share it. But I believe that we'll be okay in this instance. Anyway, all we can do is keep an eye on the situation and see what happens. So that's everything that I have for today. Quite a short one. Abigail's back for the next episode, next podcast, so we'll have a bit more of a discussion. We'll find out what she's been doing. Maybe I'll have had a chance to play a bit more of something by then. And I hope that you enjoyed this podcast, and if you did, please hit the like button, subscribe, notification bell so you can be told whenever we upload anything. Leave a comment underneath if you want to, or you can email at overshadow.shadowcast@gmail.com. We do have a Facebook page, but we're going to start. We stopped using that when we realised it was going to take a bit of time for us to have what we needed to make actual gameplay videos. So until they're ready to go, we're not going to use the Facebook page. When it comes to sending us messages or comments, ask any questions you want, make any suggestions, say anything you want, give your opinion. We will respond appropriately. But try and keep it respectful and on point with what we're talking about. So yeah, hope to hear from you and see you again next week. Bye.